everyone. Welcome back to the Cost of Living Crisis, a podcast where we dig deep into what's really happening in our communities, the challenges, the people, and the stories behind the headlines. I'm your host, Dylan Hampton, and today we're talking about something that affects all of us, whether we realize it or not: homelessness and housing affordability. Now, let's be real. You don't have to walk far in any city in California, or honestly anywhere in the U.S., to find tents lined up under overpasses, families living in their cars, rent prices that make you wonder how anyone survives on a regular paycheck. So today, I wanted to unpack this issue. Not just what's happening, but why it's happening. What it means for regular people and what we can actually do about it. So, we're going to be diving into our first segment, setting the scene. What's going on? So let's start with the basics. The cost of living in America, especially in places like California, has skyrocketed over the past decade. Rent, groceries, gas, healthcare, you name it. Everything costs more. According to recent reports, the median rent for a one-bedroom apartment in California is now over $2,500 a month. Think about that. If you're working full-time, making $20 an hour, that's roughly $3,200 a month before taxes. After taxes, if you're lucky. If you take home $2,600, that means your rent alone eats up almost your entire paycheck. And it's not just including food, car payments, insurance, or anything else. So when people talk about homelessness, it's not just about those with addictions or mental health struggles, which is often how the issue gets simplified, and that's just how people think what all homeless people are. It's about working people who can't afford to live where they work. It's about families that fall behind once a month, or behind 1 month and never catch back up. This isn't just a statistic, it's a crisis of basic survival. So, segment 2. The human side, what it feels like. So, imagine being a single mom, full-time at a grocery store. You're paying rent, trying to keep food on the table, and then your landlord raises the rent by $300 because market prices went up. You can't find another place because every apartment you look at wants first and last month's rent plus a security deposit. That's thousands of dollars up front, money you just don't have. Now, you're facing eviction. You start sleeping in your car with your kids while still showing up for work pretending everything's normal. This isn't just an exaggeration. This is real life for a lot of people. So many more people than you think. Homelessness is not always visible. It's not always someone living in a tent or pushing a cart. It's students couch surfing, families living in motels, and full-time workers sleeping in parking lots. The truth is, homelessness has layers. And when we strip away the stereotypes, what we find is a system that's failing millions of people. Not just those on the street, but those on the edge of losing their homes. Segment 3. How we got here. The systemic side. So, how did we get here? Part of it goes back to wages not keeping up with the inflation. The cost of living keeps rising, but paychecks haven't caught up. The minimum wage hasn't kept pace with the rent increases, especially in urban areas. Then there's housing development. A lot of cities, especially in California, have zoning laws that limit what can be built and where. They limit what can be built and where. That means fewer affordable housing options and more luxury apartments. Developers follow the money, and cities often allow it because higher-end houses brings in more taxes revenue. Add to that decade of underinvestment in social housing, mental health care, and public programs, and you've got a recipe for disaster. Let's also not forget corporate landlords and investors who buy up homes and turn them into Airbnbs or short-term rentals. That shrinks the housing supply and drives prices up even more. So the crisis isn't just an accident, it's a mix of economic choices, government policies, and social neglect that have all snowballed over time. So, segment 4. Reflecting on responsibility. Who's to blame? This is where it gets tricky. Because it's easy to point fingers. Some people say it's the government's fault. Others say people just need to work harder. But honestly, it's more complicated than that. The government absolutely plays a role. They set zoning laws, fund housing programs, and decide where money goes. But so do private communities that profit off rent hikes, and so do we. As a society, when we look away from people on the streets and pretend it's not our problem, when I see someone holding up a cardboard sign, I try to remind myself that it could easily be me or anyone I know. If the wrong combination of things went wrong, a job loss, a medical bill, a rent increase, we like to think homelessness is a personal failure, but in reality, it's a system failure. So, at this very moment, I'm going to be popping up a video that I found on YouTube of someone who has actually experienced this and that's how they're currently living.